we are live, technically. Not necessarily, but our lines are live, and we are at East Denver. You know what I'm saying?
2023.
Exactly. It's a pleasure to be here. Mm-hmm.
Sir.
So this, of course, is the Boltcast, hosted by yours truly, 150. So 0x150. And, of course, I have my co-founder and partner, Jakeb Livengood, media partner and good friend, FrankyNines.
Yup. What's up, Seth?
And, of course, Nathan, great friend, longtime partner, and just overall good guy, you know. Yeah. Feel free to cover any bases and do your own intros as well, and speak for yourself.
My
Speak
name's
your
Jakeb
mind.
Livengood. I've been a social media influencer for about 5 years. Started through e-commerce and entrepreneurship. And thanks to 150 here, I was onboarded into the crypto ecosystem, started learning, taking it all in like a sponge. And now we're here building this metaverse. And it's a beautiful thing, connecting with awesome people here at East Denver. You never know who you're going to meet at some of these tech conferences, especially in a bear market when market sentiment's down. But that just means morale of the real builders it's up.
Nice. FrankyNines. Let's see. I've been in the tech industry since 2007, actually. Yeah, 2007. Gaming industry in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. And I got into blockchain in 2017. I was at Dapper Labs for 2 years and then jumped over to NFT 42. I was the lead designer on VFriends with Gary V. When I was at Dapper Labs, I worked on NBA Top Shot and like post CryptoKitty stuff. And then I dropped my own NFT collection and created a company back in 2021. And I've just been rocking. I mean, I work with industry people. I've done art, like NFT artwork for Snoop, and I'm rep by WME in Los Angeles and sponsored by Monster. And I bounce around in the Web-3 space, work with Youth Global, and here at East Denver, rocking and doing my thing. Yeah.
Let's go.
Very cool. I'm Nathan Klaier. I am an angel investor and also got a small NFT fund, both doing some data-driven strategies around buying and selling and also making investments in projects and cool stuff we see in the space. So excited to be here.
Great.
Awesome. Yep. So, gents, I have one question just to break the ice. Who is doing the absolute most right now when it comes down to integrating physical products into their NFTs? Anybody? Yeah, feel free to answer.
Ooh, that's good. Right now, my eyes are on Mintage. Mintage with Nick Adler and his crew. Nick, he was Snoop's brand manager, and he dropped Mintage Pass, and he's been doing stuff with Witherspoon, and he's been doing some cool stuff like high fashion NFTs out of LA. For sure. And then I mean, like there's good projects like, you know, Artifact and Fabricant and stuff. Like they've been doing some stuff for a minute. So those are kind of like the top two on my radar for sure.
Gary V's VFriends is doing a lot of really cool partnerships with actual companies that are physical products. So we got Phygital coming in, and he's got a really long-term roadmap and vision. So I like to see that.
Yeah, the VFriend stuff. Did you see you're talking about the Gift Goat collabs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was one of the Gift Goat collabs.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. The boots, the duck boots.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I was like, I don't know what collab, like 7, I think it was. He's been doing it for a minute. He's got a lot now.
Yeah.
You know anything about the fashion space and NFTs?
Unfortunately, not really. We're buying a lot of digital physical art representation, so I'm here kind of thinking about that a lot. Not too much of fashion. I've been talking to a lot of guys who are doing these merges. There's actually a cool company down called, I think it's called AliceNet. There's like a proof of ownership representation of different artwork, and they'll do a 3D model of the artwork you can put and display on a screen. Plus, you can put the actual artwork in your house as well. So
Yeah.
we're thinking about that from a real estate perspective right now. How can we integrate that into real estate development? That's the coolest physical digital merge I've seen so far.
Have you seen the real estate protocol that's come out? The token. I don't know what the protocol number, the EIP, but it's made for real estate, like NFTs.
Like you buy the house, or like
I think so. It's a protocol. It was like it was submitted to the Ethereum Foundation, and then I think it got approved. I think it's like audited and approved. I don't know. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but this is like maybe a month ago or 2 months ago.
Really?
Kinda cool. Yeah, you should look into it.
That's
He
sick,
probably
yeah.
knows. He actually probably knows. You know anything about that real estate protocol that was proposed to Ethereum?
Like physical real estate or
Yeah,
digital real estate?
I think so. I think it's physical. Might be digital. I might be wrong. But
I know there was a physical real estate protocol. There was. I remember it. But the name eludes me.
it's like EIP like 4.3 something. I don't know, but yeah, you should check into that because
Interesting. Yeah.
there's some cool stuff going on right now. I mean, I was looking at one of my buddies here that's hacking. They put together a like wallet container protocol, which is an NFT that can contain and own multiple NFTs. And what you can do with that is you can do it like I was talking with him. I was like, yeah, you can make a merch bundle and then have it contain burnable redeemables. Like you could have like a full merch pack. Like you could get like a whole like, you know, a full fit, shoes, socks, whatever, and then you could have it burn and redeem. But you could do stuff like, you know, you said like an art package, right? It's like a full furnished art package for a home or something. Like you could do some crazy stuff like that with that.
Yeah.
I think putting like car titles and home liens on chain is very future looking, and it's awesome that we're seeing that type of innovation in the space.
30 years out in the United States, but I could see Singapore doing it or some country like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. Digitizing these sorts of records is definitely par for the course and should be expected. You know, I think one of the things that we're doing at Bolt is sort of taking those sorts of ideas, but utilizing NFC-based technology to facilitate them, but also utilizing protocol-level software behind the NFC technology. But there are various other people that are doing the same thing, you know? So yeah, another question, what do you guys think about Gamefi and avatars that just so happen to yield governance tokens that are worth value?
So without touching directly on the avatars yet,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about GameFi. I think it's very interesting because the gaming industry in Web 2 is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's only getting bigger because many people love gaming as a pastime. But unfortunately, these tech giants, they're kind of oligarchian, and they control everything. I don't know if you've looked into the numbers, but 2022, Epic Games, owner of Fortnite, they did $4.8 billion in revenue in transactions in in-game cosmetic skins. They add no value to the internal gameplay, and this company is amassing this massive wealth while their users actually don't have any inherent financial value from buying into that ecosystem. And so I believe on-chain digital assets actually fixes that problem, and it allows people that are just, they want to monetize their passions and their loves, and they love gaming. It affords them that opportunity to make that a viable, livable income. So I think that's awesome.
You know, Jake, I think what you said is correct, that there is a big amount of money in the space, right? And I actually think probably the big first use case for me of NFTs is the gaming space. I think it's just a natural fit. Number one, you got this database, you got a bunch of programmers at these companies who know how to write, right? But there's no education process. Number two, ever since I was a kid, you'd go on to like Diablo 2. Some guy would be duping their items and getting some sort of benefit from it. Like I spent countless hours, playing with this, figuring out like, is this legit? Like, where's the hack spot in the game, et cetera, et cetera. If I could earn a token, to Patrick's point, for owning that item, and have a unique identifier so it couldn't get duped, I would absolutely pay money for it, and there's already big money in that space. So we're really bullish on that, actually. We think that's going to be a big thing. And we think, there's some really innovative companies doing stuff around that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, what about you, Frankie? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking at. So I come from the gaming industry, right? So, but I was like really early gaming industry, web games mostly. So when I got started in 2006-07, it was like Facebook games. This was around the time when Club Penguin was acquired by Disney, and so in San Francisco, like in the Soma specifically, there was this huge surge of MMORPG flash games, and then Facebook had their little browser games. People would play like the Vampire and Gangster Wars or whatever. But then we were able to actually put like sumo isometric 3D little browser experience games on Facebook, and and that kind of evolved into Zynga. And there was always this customization, what we would call Invest Express model, right? Where it's like people, they invest a lot of time to be able to buy things to express themselves. And that was like a game design curve that was made to monetize really high, right? So like in Farmville, it was like, there was always like, you'd have to like clean up the poop, and you'd have to, harvest the corn crops, and then you'd earn your coins, and then you could buy these little things. And so like the game item concept is it's evolved a lot since then. Before that, well, console games, like you bought the game, like you didn't really customize stuff. Like maybe you would unlock some things in like, a story-driven thing. But when you look at the evolution of it, and then you add in blockchain, where it's like, oh, now I can actually add value to these items, and then you look at the complications with security, right, in the United States, and the kind of the regulation stuff, and like OpenSea, like closing down collections that are like, you can't actually have an NFT collection that like yields value, right? Like they block it, So I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. I think the pitch that we did to Facebook when we were like telling them about like what we thought the metaverse was like, in the future people will just play games and that's how they make a living, But it would be like more like simulation roles. Like if you just want to go be a pirate, or you want to go be a dragon slayer, like you make your living doing that, right? In VR or on console or on whatever. Like that's how you do it. But I still don't know. I think it's still blurry, like in terms of what is going to be allowed. But it's all country based, right? It's not like global.
Yeah, that's
let me try to like drop another story in here, because I think it might be interesting to the audience. So 2 weeks ago, I went to a concert by this guy named Joe Hisaishi. Joe Hisaishi did all the audio work for Legend of Zelda back in the day,
sick.
Which is really cool, right? I mean, oh no, I said that wrong. That's incorrect. He did all the audio work for Totoro and Studio Ghibli, right? They also have a lot of video games. So you imagine you play a Studio Ghibli video game. The story doesn't have to end for you when you stop playing the game. You got to take your token away you've owned. You got to go to that concert. You got to share it with your friend. Like, it's a way to it really is, I think, one of the first metaverse experiences, because you can bring that interaction out of the digital into the physical. It doesn't have to leave your life. It's like a way of enriching your life, I think, on and off chain at the same time. So I really like it, and I think it's a really natural fit for the technology.
Yeah, I think if the ecosystem is limited to, like you said, physical games, right? Back in the day, you say you get Assassin's Creed, right? You play through the whole game and you beat the gaming experience. What next, right? The game's over, and there's no intrinsic value externally for that game. You can't then take all those items that you've leveled up and then bring them over to another gaming ecosystem and utilize them there, or have any tangible real world yield from playing that game.
That's the thing too, right? Like, so let's say this, and I'm going to use a really boring analogy. I'm going to use one that's more exciting. Okay, anyone who's stuck working an office job, like you'd play like a football, like office, fantasy football, whatever it is, right? You get a token. The guy will get in a trophy. You can imagine like old shows of The Office. They'd bring in the trophy, and they go like, all right, whatever. Like that now can be taken with you, right? So you can actually use it for something versus it just being a bragging right. Same thing with every video game. So like I think what you're going to see is these ecosystems of developers. You're already seeing this when I walk around this conference. There's plenty of guys doing this, right? Ecosystems of developers who are like interacting with each other, and they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to replicate my sword in like this game, and that sword is going to carry into your game. So I'm going to be able to carry like my, my green lightsaber, or the sword of epic tales from game to game, and that's going to be sick, because that's going to be your unique item, and it's going to be unique in every game you play. I think it's going to be amazing, frankly. Yeah,
I agree 100%. Hey, so I wanted to take this time to sort of like pass my seat and introduce Ian, who is the CEO of Wagmi Games, and he's going to hop in on the discussion for the panel, just to like jump in, because I feel as if like this guy would absolutely like punch in and sort of like give some really good alpha about this sort of conversation as well.
Great.
Yeah. Hey, Ian.
Welcome, Ian.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to meet you.
Oh, this is nice. Good evening, San
So
Francisco.
please intro Wagmi Games and what it is that you guys are building so the audience can be familiarized with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Bentley. I'm the CEO of Wagmi Games, and what we've been building for the last 14 months is essentially a brand. We're really focused on a franchise, and you guys can kind of see our comics right here. That's a 40-page comic describing the story of how the war started in 3022 when the aliens decided to violate the treaty, having to do mining Nephi, which is nickel iron and the core element of the Earth, and start a galactic war. So that leads into a simple tower defense game that's mobile, right? But the difference of what we're doing from what a Web 2 game is versus a Web 3 game is just the ability to have digital ownership, right? To have something, you have the ability to do something with your assets instead of throwing money away for the sake of just straight up entertainment. And one of the things that we're doing that's a little bit different in this space is we'll be one of the first games in the world that's going to be on the app stores. You do not need crypto or NFTs to play the game. Essentially, the onboarding process is exactly the same, where users come in, set up an account, but what we do is we set up a custodial wallet for them. Anytime they purchase anything, which by the way, you can purchase with fiat. You do not need crypto. We're official partners with Immutable X, so we have no gas. We're able to then airdrop all of their assets directly into their wallets. Then let them play. Let them have a good time. In between, we'll have educational processes where our characters come to life and then teach them, hey, did you know that what you have is called a wallet? Did you know you actually own your digital assets? And with live ops having motion capture, real engine characters coming to life, we're able to do this on a weekly basis and identify if somebody has a human emperor. Like, hey, did you know that the human emperor is actually worth $85 on GameStop? And actually be able to then have funnels for the consumers to be able to actually say, all right, this isn't so bad. I've heard nothing but awful things about NFTs and blockchain and things like that. But instead, all right, this is something I've been doing anyways, but now I have an opportunity to do something where I can monetize and have fun at the same time, but without being pressured with crazy tokenomics or literally the problems with the play to earn stuff is it's unsustainable. You know, eventually their tokens run out eventually, right? So yeah, that's basically what we're doing here at Wagmi Games.
That's beautiful. So if I understand correctly, so I can surmise that for the audience, effectively what you've done is we see a lot of fear-based modalities based on ignorance of what blockchain technology is, and you've developed a beautiful, non-threatening Web 2 UI UX for a Web 3 ecosystem that a lot of users that may not be so familiarized with decentralized protocols or a MetaMask wallet, they can jump in, play your game directly on their phone mobily, and not even come to a fundamental understanding until your characters come to life and give them that level of education that they're actually playing an on-chain game and they actually are earning a token that can then be sold for actual value later.
Absolutely. And you know, the term NFT is, I like to call it the three-letter bad word. It's technology, right? It's just digital ownership on the blockchain is what it really is, right? So if we look at it as technology and we say, don't worry about, you know, I always say, if you're going to buy a refrigerator, right, are you caring what the condenser is in the ice maker because it makes cool ice? No, you care less. That's just the technology behind it. You just want to make sure that the ice is nice and crunchy when you have that whiskey sour, right? And that's the same thing that we're coming across. And we just believe that, you know, the mistake, and I don't know if it's a mistake, I think it's an emerging technology with gaming, but really, you just have to meet the players where they're at instead of expecting them to come to you because you think you have the greatest technology in the world. And I think that that is the evolution of what's happening here in this bear market, is you're starting to see the games that are building. It's like, okay, we're focusing more on the gameplay, and we're finding out ways that we can be more creative to actually go to where the players are at and have frictionless opportunities to onboard people that might not have been interested in this bubble, this echo chamber that all of us are in right now, talking to each other, thinking that we're the coolest things ever. We are, but at the same time, we just have to let the players, we have to hold their hands, and it's walk before we run.
I can say this. When I was a kid, we collected Pokemon cards, right? And so we still have memories today of owning the Pokemon card. One of my friends got a Charizard ripped off. He's obviously upset about that, right? Because it's worth a lot of money now. But like, I still hear about that story on a routine basis, right? Oh, you got one. So the fact that you've got this ownership model built into the game, I think, is so powerful for bringing people in to the ecosystem. And I think you doing it in a safe way allows younger people to participate. They keep ownership over their assets. You guys help them, and they don't have to go somewhere where they don't know if they can actually, execute and be, have a safe place to do it. So really cool.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things that we're doing with the seasons is the artwork on the characters in the game. Those will change. There'll be the surprises of black and whites versus colors. We actually have, so this comic right here it's an NFT drop. And by holding this comic, what you'll do is you'll get airdropped a special edition comic that has to do with the art. The art is the comic, right? So only 6,000 of those will be dropped in the world, ever, every single month. So, trying to create that same kind of collectability on a digital level as Pokemon has done into our game as well. So we've taken what's worked in the real world and making it really simple, and then yes, giving the opportunity. I think one of the things also is, constantly talking about who the avatar is. Who are we trying to actually get into this ecosystem? I'm a little bit older, so I have friends that have kids that spend a lot of money on app stores. And it's always the same conversation of, man, another $150 gone, Roblox, right? Another $150 gone with all of these games. It's like, yeah, with Wagmi Defense, you actually have the opportunity to sell it if the kid is done with the game. And they're like, man, if I can even get 10 cents off the dollar, just unload all of my assets, spend $1,500, all right, I'll take $150, $200 back, no problem, right? So I think that it's also, you say the kids, but it's also the parents, right? To be able to say, listen, there's something out there that's they can play something as long as it's fun, as long as they like to play it. There's better versions of it because of Web3 and NFTs and digital ownership.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Why do you guys think that game makers like makers of World of Warcraft or Fortnite or Call of Duty have not given their players the abilities to sell their assets, regardless of needing blockchain or not? I mean, you could technically do it without blockchain because they know that there's secondary markets for this. People, there's people that mine gold in WoW and sell. There's people that sell Fortnite accounts. Like, why do you think these games have been around for half a decade or more? Like, and they know there's a ton of money in it, and they know that they could chip off fees. Why do you think they haven't done that yet?
So there was always a big black market for these items, right? You could always go on and, if you wanted to get up level to level 70 in World of Warcraft, you could buy that. You could buy World of Warcraft Gold, etc. If I was sitting in it, I was EA Sports, how am I monetizing that? If I'm not monetizing it, why would I let you do it, right? So because it also screws up my game dynamic. Now, I'm not a CEO of a gaming company, but I would imagine I don't want everyone walking around at level 70, unless I've got something for them at level 70. So I'll defer to the rest of you guys about this. That's my guess.
You want me to take that?
I'll take it before you because I know your answer is going to be amazing. But I would say, and maybe this as an end user, someone that enjoys gaming, I think that these Web2 organizations that are massive, I think they are intrinsically motivated, financially speaking, to what would the value for them as a large video gaming organization going, okay, look, we're netting $4.7 billion a year off of in-game cosmetics, and if we move this, not necessarily on-chain, but if we make it so that tokens can actually, not tokens, but in-game items can then be swapped out for our in-game currency and then bought with something else, we're going to be losing revenue because individuals that are playing our game aren't as intrinsically motivated to continue buying our in-game token to buy more.
And I think then they tried to then do in-game purchases, right?
Yes.
And they did monetize it through in-game purchases, right?
But the company monetized it, not the end user.
Not the end user. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the same way that would work on blockchain, like there would be a fee. So what's the difference?
So I think that there's two things. Number one, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, Number two, they're looking at us to see if it's going to work. This is a experiment, right? The gaming, NFT, secondary market experiment, and nobody's gone to market yet with a successful game because we're so early. And I think that they're watching. But if you don't think that they're developing it in the background, they are, because you know that Sony has done a patent having to do with blockchain technology.
Yeah.
They've announced that, right? So they're building it. They're just not going to tell you if they're going to use it yet. So I think that they're excited about it, but they want to see a use case to determine if the secondary market is going to cannibalize their revenue first. And if it doesn't and it actually adds to more revenue, they're all going to jump on. But if they see that it's like, okay, great, there's a lot of common stuff out there, and because the common stuff is out there and the people own it, then at that point, do we really want to go that model? I do think it's going to be a step-by-step process where these game studios are going to say, listen, if you want to trade our stuff, no problem, but you can't undercut us. And I think that's what's going to happen. So it's going to be like, hey, if we're going to sell this to you for $1, that's the floor price. Right? So they're going to set their own floor on their own assets in their own marketplaces. And I think that it's going to be a step-by-step process before they're comfortable allowing true digital ownership anywhere on any marketplace. So that's just my thought.
And then one thing I'd like to add, what I think is beautiful about what Wagmi Games doing is, if at the top of your new customer acquisition funnel is education first, where a lot of these blockchain games are, you're kind of cutting yourself off at the foot, because you're limiting your overall net pool of end users that might be interested in your gaming experience. Whereas if your UI UX is on the App Store and it's a seamless, harmless Web2 game, you can bring on people that may watch news and not be so familiarized and not like the idea of blockchain, but they are playing it without even knowing, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, because who wants to go to school? Right?
Depends on what you're learning.
Some of us love it. We can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, the majority of the people in the world, man, keep it simple, stupid. Right? So it's the education process after they like something, and it's got to be a step by, and that's part of like what we're building and going to our soft launch here in the next 90 days. Is those are going to be the key performing indicators that we're going to be having to test out with the people that are coming in. Number one, from Web3, so we'll be able to identify if somebody switches their wallet versus uses a custodial. If they're still using the custodial, we'll make the assumption that essentially they're not really into crypto too much. And at that point, we'll have the data to be able to determine, okay, great, this person got to this level, why did they stop? And if we actually threw in some of the educational funnels at specific points in their journey in the game, how is that going to move the needle to get them further into the actual leveling up process, right? One of the things that we're going to be doing that we're really excited about is at level 5, you'll have the opportunity to fuse. So you can play aliens or humans, either deck, and at level 5, you can actually fuse an alien or human to create a whole new species called Nephilim. We as a game studio are not selling that. Only the players are going to be able to create that. We believe that that's going to help with the secondary market. It's also going to help with actually having players being like, now we can get a little more creative with those characters and then put them into the game. But at the same time, what is that going to do? That level 5 is probably going to be where a lot of people are going to be like, I'm just going to purchase some level 5 aliens and humans because I don't really have the time to grind, but damn, I want to play some of them Nephilim, right? So trying to have that balance of secondary market, getting people to understand that if you didn't have these NFTs to do this, you wouldn't be able to do it and actually be able to come into a level 5 or be able to potentially monetize a really cool rare Nephilim that you never would have had if it didn't have to do with NFTs and blockchain.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So where is the future of Wagmi Games? So I know you're building a tower defense game. As far as
I'm gonna head out, guys.
Hey, nice to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Let's chat after.
Absolutely.
I've been in the gaming industry for a minute, so I got some thoughts.
I would love to hear, man.
Yeah.
So as far as a fleet of games, you're
Yes.
building a tower defense game. Is there anything else on the books now that you guys are in development that's public information now?
So in development, no. In concept, yes. Our CGO, Lewis, he literally has created all of this from his brain, which is so phenomenal. I have a front row seat to see it. It's so cool. As far as in development, no. We believe that if you're trying to do too many things at one time, you're going to fail. So if we're all of a sudden focused on the second game, how are we going to really knock out the ballpark on the first game?
100%.
Our goal, though, is the interoperability of the characters. So as we get to the second game, the characters that you have in the first game, you can port over. So we're not going to require any of these new NFTs. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. It's been a long time.
I know, it's been like 15 minutes.
I mean, we didn't even know each other like 24 hours ago, and we're on two different chats. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh! Before you leave town, I think we're probably going to do like 2 or 3 podcasts together. I suspect.
Dude, I think we're going to have an Airbnb together. Let's go. I don't know. What was I saying, dude?
So you're talking about, well, we actually just talked about this when we started up on Gamefi, was that, old games, Assassin's Creed, you beat the game and all of a sudden there's no more use case. You're leveled up sword. And so it's cool to have, that's something that blockchain technology fixes. You have your one game, your tower defense game, and you launch a, MOBA game or something, and your characters are interoperable. I think that's beautiful.
100%. And it's trying to evolve what's successful in Web 2. And, don't try to reinvent the wheel too much. Make it so that if the players like something, give them more of it, right? But yes, it's the beauty of the NFTs and the franchise to say, hey, listen, you can port your NFTs from game 1 to game 2. In fact, we're having different communities where we have emotes in the game. Where we're like, listen, we can create emotes for any of the communities. Where if your communities come in, just have this code right here, and all of a sudden they can actually create like emotes specifically in the game. So now it's like, all right, dude, I'm playing somebody from Neo Tokyo. All right, yeah, that was. Oh, you had to throw me that emote. Okay, cool. And that creates some of the community vibes that we're looking to do. And one of the things that I love about Web3 is I don't feel like there's competition. We're all trying to do something that's completely new. So the way we look at it is if there's 5 or 6 or 10 games that start popping off, that just is introducing people, and hopefully they have kind of the same, thought process as far as the onboarding that we have, where it's like you're introducing people that are not in Web3 to game, to the NFT part. And what will happen is like, okay, great, that was a cool game. What else is in this ecosystem of NFTs that I can go and play and start trading? So it's like, okay, great. So we just feel like if there's opportunities for other games or other communities that we can collaborate with, we're all for it, because we just believe that the 4% that are in crypto, which if you dissect that down to, I think there's only 1 million people really that actually play games in NFT or Web3, and really if you dissect that even more, how many of them are playing for the game? It's all about making money. Yep. So really, there's nobody playing games for the sake of playing games in Web3 yet, right? So that's why I'm saying there's no competition. Let's get as many people as we can outside of our little bubble into the bubble with a good game, and at that point, it's all going to, it's all going to come back to all of the games that are actually building in this bear market and coming out with good products.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so here on Boltcast number 1, our situation is sort of a round table, and so we've got guests cycling in, cycling out. I'm going to allow our new guests here to introduce themselves. We got Ian, CEO of Wagmi Games. We got Jakeb Livengood, co-founder of Bolt EVM. Why don't you two gentlemen go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about what you're building?
Sure. Hey, I'm BrandonDavid with Krypton Labs, director of community there, and also Why Web3 Music Tech Connect, a community we're building to build bridges for the future now.
Love that.
My name is Seth. I go by the handle Mind Your Biz. I'm a content creator in the Web3 and prior to that blockchain ecosystem since 2018. Been involved kind of tangentially in the ecosystem since before that. And I'm always pursuing interesting conversations with people who are actively building. During the builders market, like, this is where I thrive. My audience has heard it from me numerous times. Like, this is where I get to work. So, like, the moment that I heard from the Boltcast team that they were looking for guests, I was like, I'm there. Like, obviously I'm there. I am building also as part of the emerging assets group that's associated with the Golden Retriever team, the Bark token, and now Block 47. And I can't talk much more about it than that on your podcast, but this is an early glimpse. You got some alpha there for your audience.
Exciting. Yeah, so I love this because we've got blockchain gaming, we've got music in Web3 and on-chain and connection and community. And then we've got content development, which leads me and segues me into our next keynote topic on this podcast, which is content creation and the ecosystem inside of Web3, right? So we see a lot of creators, a lot of Twitch streamers seeing a lot of success through the monetization avenues that exist today, Google AdSense, stuff like that. But with blockchain gaming and content creation merging together, we've got a whole new avenue of earning potential for these creatives. So how about we go around and each give a little segment on where we think content creation and blockchain gaming converging is going.
Oh man. So like when it comes to content creation and committing anything to the blockchain, I've been interviewing founders of various different decentralized social media platforms, decentralized publishing platforms, decentralized alternatives to YouTube and Twitch, etc. So we've been looking for a while for ways to disrupt some of the traditional players there, some of the biggest players in the content space, content syndication space in particular. And I think that Web3 gaming, we had a conversation with us about this pretty candidly before. Web3 gaming is going to be one of those. It's going to be sort of the entry point, the wedge that starts to divide that for us better, because you have people that are already in an ecosystem where they're after those digital assets in game, but they can potentially mint digital assets from their content in game. And prior to being able to have all of those incentives fully stacked and aligned, it's been really hard to get decentralized publishing going the right way. Now with Web3 gaming, I think really, if we can't make it work with Web3 gaming, maybe we just can't make it work. Like, we got all the incentives there. So like, why wouldn't we get the publishing decentralized? Why wouldn't we get the ownership of content for people who are talking about any topic, right? Why wouldn't we get that sort of incentive aligned with Web3 gaming to start, where you already have that rich history? Now, more than 10 years, maybe not, but this rich history of people playing video games for an audience, but now they're playing video games where there may be some attached incentives. And yeah, it's not the primary thing, but there's some attached incentives. So why not monetize the content too?
100%. And things like Lens Protocol make that possible.
Yeah, I see a commentary in concerts. You know, when there was Marshmello was known for doing that in-game performance in Fortnite, right? That's a light bulb moment. So being able to do it in a decentralized way where I just see, I see where the AR and the VR worlds are going to really benefit in, your character development, stuff like to be able to have commentary and actual live pop-up concerts, and then be able to mint those performances or monetize those performances or commentary post-performance, even though they could live in the game, I think is or even forever. Some of them could potentially forever live in the game, and the rebroadcast of those performances in that commentary could really be something special. It's beautiful.
This is my wheelhouse. So when it comes to content creators with gaming, there's two mechanisms that we're incredibly excited to roll out. Number one, it's having an affiliate program, partner program, ambassador program, however you want to call it. But essentially, it's giving an opportunity for these content creators to make money beyond just the views and the ads that are rolled on Twitch and AdWords. And we're not talking about a multi-level marketing. We're talking about just, hey, listen, if you send somebody into our game, we're going to give you a percentage of the revenue that you sent in. And it's really simple. And what Web3 and NFTs actually allow you to do, and credit to Scott Herman, who's on our team. He actually has 3 million subs in YouTube. He's got a 60,000 sub deal with, I think, Dokkan Battle, right? That's one of the things that he's been streaming before he was a team member. But he's like, I have so many commons of Dokkan Battle. Imagine if I can give them out to my audience and say, hey, listen, at the end of this program, I'm going to give away 10 of these, right? What does that do? It now has an incentive for people that are watching his, Twitch streams or his YouTube content creation. So they say, yeah, I definitely would love to have one of those extra NFTs or characters that you just don't want. And I know that it's from Scott because it's on the blockchain, right? That's awesome. What happens then? Hey, listen, by the way, if you just enter my code and come in, I also have something special for everybody, right? I have my own emotes, right? We talked about the moats a second ago. Like, dude, you can have my Scott Herman emote, right? Well, what happens there? It incentivizes people to use his code. Then at that point, now incentivizes them to create more content because now, hey, listen, I got people into the game, I got new users into the game, and now let me explain how, like that Nephilim, Fusion 5, dude, I'm actually going to fuse something live on my live stream, and I'm going to give it away. It's worth like $150. Like, I know it is because look what they're going for at the floor price. And those are the cool things that content creators are going to be able to do, having to do with gaming and NFTs. And that's what we're really excited about. Merging the fact that they can give stuff away to the audience and monetize it within the game through like an affiliate program.
I love that. And then my sentiment on this, so alongside building my first e-commerce business and then moving into having a tech startup in Silicon Valley and then moving with 150 into running Bolt, Gary Vaynerchuk, shout out Gary V, love him. He's a large reason why I'm an entrepreneur today. He told me document everything and monetize your passions. And so I built a little side brand for myself as a gamer because I was like, I love gaming, but I kind of feel guilty for playing games when I should be building my business. And fortunately, I saw a little bit of success with that. So now I'm at a place where I now have a separate brand outside of my entrepreneurial brand that is solely based around Web 2 and Web 3 gaming, which allows me to, as a creative, to explore my creativity in ways that previously I wasn't able to monetize. And now I can just play a game, and even if it's a Web 3 game, it can be sort of an educational series where I'm like, hey guys, this isn't as intimidating or scary as you may think. I'm just playing a video game here. It just so happens that these are real tangible assets that when I decide I want to play a different game, I can airdrop this out to a community member that's a great supporter. I could sell it on the secondary market if I happen to want the liquidity. There are so many options for me outside of playing, ORS or World of Warcraft. And so what we're building with Bold, it really ties into what Brandon said. So you guys have all spoken with Pat, and it's great to connect with you and you. It's awesome. So we are building a EVM club on the blockchain built in NeosVR, but the platform itself is non-compatible. We're gonna move everywhere in the long term. Right now, we're still in stage 1 of our roadmap. But what we're doing actually, it's an NFT project and a DAO that allows for this space to be utilized for live events. And because it's built on Neos, it's actually EVM compatible. You can actually transact natively on layer 1 and layer 2. And so the opportunity there's so many people. All of us could have sort of our own way of utilizing the space. We've got people like Autograph, who's a DJ who can absolutely host live metaverse events where he can jump in VR and him and 63 of his closest homies that are his biggest supporters can come party with him live in VR. Me as a content creative, I can go in there in a private instance and I can curate content where I'm a metaverse character and I'm making Web3 101 educational content, but I'm actually a metaverse character, so it's sort of Web 2.5, bridging my audience over. Another thing I want to hear your guys' perspective on, because this is a tribulation I've dealt with, right? I'm a Supercell gamer. I'm actually a competitive professional Clash Royaler, and that's what my gaming brand was actually built around.
We need to talk.
We will. But so here's the thing, right? I blew up doing TikTok lives. I got 160,000 followers on a Clash Royale specific account. This is a problem that I've dealt with as a Web 2 creator in the Web 3 space. I want to hear what your guys' market sentiment is of this. So I'll post a Clash Royale video. It'll get 100,000 views. Great engagement rate, 12% engagement rate. We've got a 50% audience retention. I post a video talking about undead blocks or talking about, Bolt VR, something that involves the 3-letter bad word.
Don't say it.
I won't say it. Non-fungible tokens, we'll expand it out. Or metaverse or blockchain. And all of a sudden, I have this fear modality that pops up, and the large majority of my audience who, ignorance is not bliss. And unfortunately, where we're at because of, centralized institutions, media institutions, blockchain's evil. And so a lot of people sort of buy into that because they don't have a thorough enough understanding of what it is. So how do we, as Web3 creators that are looking to bridge, and I hate using the term because it's so overplayed in Web3, but bridge the gap, right? Bridge the gap between where we're at now, where fear and market sentiment, especially because of where the overall industry is. We're in a bear market right now. How do we bridge that gap in a way that maintains audience retention and educates in a way that's profound and has reasonable impact in the long term?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's the $1 billion question, right? So whoever has the real answer to that, awesome. Please remember when you make it huge. Like, remember me. And remember all the little people. But like, as far as just chipping away, like, I think that there's only so much that you can do. That whole like think global, act local mentality. I think that we're always kind of constrained by world events. We're always constrained by what we can actually address. So you're talking about this audience that has given you permission to talk to them at 100,000 person intervals at a time, right? 100,000 person tranches. And when you talk about anything other than what they want to hear, you no longer have the permission. It's always permission oriented, right? It's a conversation, really. Content is always a conversation. And that person, like, just like talking to somebody on the street, they got every right to tell you to F off, right? And just turn tail, walk away. So it's always permission based. And I think when we start with ideology and saying, I'm definitely going to help you adjust your worldview because I've got the truth and you need to hear it. Like, I mean, come on. It's like being approached by somebody on the street, wearing with leaflets and some like holy book, like that you're not interested in reading for whatever reason. Like, I don't care whose holy book it is or whose pamphlets they are. If you're not interested, you're not interested. Proselytizers get panned, right? Like, and that's just the truth. So we have that problem in Web3 in that we're trying to proselytize, right? And so people are like, yeah, get that pamphlet out of my face, right? Like, no, I'm not going to donate to your little hippie commune out in the whatever on the Himalayas. Get out of here. Like, people don't want to know what they don't know, right? Unfortunately, you can't sell people what they need. You can only sell them what they want. And the same is true of content, which is why I'm totally on board with this concept of gaming being our poison pill, right? We can kill all the anti-Web3 sentiment if we get them on board with gaming first. But how do we make sure that they got that easy intro? Man, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, not at all. Because you're talking about like the branding problem of Web3, and you're telling them, oh yeah, there's this non-fungible token attached to what I'm doing here. Like, my background in content is proof of work. So you already know, like, people, when they hear that you're not only into blockchain, but you're into proof of work, they're like, do you know how much that in-game item costs by way of kilowatts of electricity and coal burned? Like, they get really nasty with you because they think that somehow you're destroying the environment. Like, you personally boiled the oceans because you minted an NFT, right? Like, it gets really weird. And I mean, even with ETH transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake, there's still this problem because ordinals became a thing, right, on Bitcoin. So we have all this stuff that's wrapped up and has been part of the popular narrative that is anti-Web3, right? So, like, we've got a lot to overcome there because it's just, again, to use a bad analogy, it's just like the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door. If you don't like them, you don't like them. I have nothing against them. But if you don't like them, you just don't like them. And you're going to tell them to pound sand when they knock on your door. That's the problem we have when we first start with, like, can I mention NFTs now? Oh. What are you going to do?
The problem, though, is when you go over to proof of stake, then the vegans get upset.
That's true.
But I believe it comes to the grassroots again, right? And attraction. Some of the greatest grassroots movements happen because of attraction rather than promotion. Those who know that term know the roots of that organization. But, in Nashville, we heard Derek from Bunches really honed in on early adopters, taproots. And I think you're hitting it on the head and I know another influencer in Miami that talks about parties with a purpose, right? Virgil Abloh was part of a community that was, what attracted him to that was, oh, these are parties, but they're parties with a purpose. So I think using the Art Basels, the South by Southwest, the Bonnaroos, the merging of like ETH Denver's meets South by, like inviting people into a party. Like, so many people go to MLM parties that, like, pantry chef, this, that. Why? Because somebody they trusted invited them, and there's going to be food, there's going to be coffee, there's going to be a DJ. So, like, I think finding the common ground, focusing on the early adopters, not trying to convert the haters, but I think focusing there, and then make content out of the polarizing sides. If you can get the polarizing sides together, let them duke it out, and then push that out via content. And then, because then whatever's, it's like the old Ben Shapiro and the Young Turks or whatever, everybody's watching that, and then people could decide for themselves what they like.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Enragement is engagement. I mean, it's a very tiring brand to keep up if you're doing that every day, day in, day out. But enragement really is engaged. The thing is, you have to be right on the edge if you're going to do it.
Enrage against the machine, man. That's what we got to do. At Bonnaroo.
So I think it comes down to, again, walking before you run. Now, you talked about the polarizing sides, right? Now, granted, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're going to have polarizing sides. But you're going to have 5% on one side and 5% on the other side, and you're going to have 90% of the people that are just fine. And it's okay. So what's good is you should take what the sentiment is on both sides and understand how to be as politically correct as possible in the middle, because you're never going to convert the right to the left. Somebody that loves Donald Trump will never love Biden. I don't care if they give him $1 million, they're still going to hate him. They'll love him because of the money, but they'll tell everybody else that they'll hate him. Social media is one of those things where I've learned that you can't try to battle a troll in comments. And if you do, you'll lose every single time because they love it. Even if you think you win the debate, you lose the war. So one of the things that you just have to do when it comes down to actually getting out, so your example with TikTok, I'm a true believer of blocking people. Just block them. You have nothing nice to say, go fuck yourself. I don't want you even seeing my shit. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice to take some of that information and be like, this is what this person thought, so how can I take that, and how common is that? Is that just one complete schmuck? Or is that like a little bit of a trend that we need to then take into our accounting of advertising and funnels, identify who the avatar is? I mean, you said that you're into e-com and stuff like that. So obviously, all about the funnels. If you talk to one person, you're going to be successful. If you talk to everybody, you're talking to nobody. So identify who you want to talk to, right? And yes, with TikTok, it's a little bit tougher if it's a specific content like a Clash Royale. But at the same time, if you're talking about the things having to do the fun of a game to your audience and not talking about any of the emerging technology that we're talking about, you have a fighting chance. And if the game is actually good and they have a smooth onboarding process that has absolutely nothing to do with NFTs or crypto, you've taken the next step. And it's going to be an evolution when it comes to actually getting a lot of people into the ecosystems that we believe in, that we know that in the next 4 or 5 years is probably going to be the norm. But at the same time, it's just going to take that. Let's not worry about the haters. Let's not really give too much cred to the ones that are enthusiastic about it. And let's just talk about the middle ground, who are the ones that we're going to make the money off of anyways, and figure out how to just hold their hand into it. But when it's all said and done, e-com, right? If you have a shitty product, it doesn't matter. No one's going to buy it. So you have to have a good game. And if the game is super fun to play, at that point, like I said, what we're doing is the educational funnels happen after they're in the ecosystem. Don't lead with it. If you lead with it, you're going to lose.
So what I'm hearing is build it and they will come. Don't focus too much on those. You want to obviously nurture the relationships of those true fans, but you don't want to solely focus on those. If there's a denigrating comment or sentiment, if you can find a way to make that a educational piece and bring that back so that it's a teachable moment, fine, by all means do it. But otherwise, sort of don't ignore and outperform.
Yeah, and meet them where they're at. Yep. Don't try to have them come to you. I think that's the most important. If we're going to talk about anything, right? Just like you said, okay? Somebody's knocking on your door, ding dong. Come to the ladder. Jesus Christ, whatever they're called. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult for them to convert. It's a numbers game, and they're forced to have to say, okay, 1 out of 100 successful. But if you meet that person at a bar, and they don't drink, but I'll just use this analogy. If you meet them at a bar and you have a good conversation with them, and they're like, wow, I like that guy. And, the next day you have more conversations and actually wind up being friends, and then eventually you find out what they're all about, and you're like, why? Why are you so interested in that religion? And then all of a sudden, there's an open mind to actually understanding somebody else's beliefs. And it's the same thing, right? It's human psychology. If you try to force something down somebody's throat, it's unnatural. A couple weeks ago, they did a swab to make sure that I didn't have strep. And they tried to force that down my throat, and it wasn't good. I did not like it. Don't do that to me, right? So therefore, if there was a better process on how to do that, it would have been much better. But I know it's a stupid analogy, but you just can't try to force anything to somebody. Number one, so that's the other thing, right? Most people, and we give a lot of credit to people in this space, most people are stupid, right? Most people don't want to learn new stuff. Most people are just straight up let me go about my business and let me do my 9 to 5 and let me do what I'm going to be doing and let me play the games that I know how to play. Let me have the music that I know how to music. If you teach them a new app, they're like, no. The old person's on Facebook and you teach them TikTok. Oh, no, right?
Set in their ways.
They're set in their ways, right? So you have to understand that. And if you can understand that people are set in their ways, how can you just ease them into it? And I think that is going to be how people are able to onboard people into Web3. And it's going to be a lot of experimentation, A/B, funnels. How do you talk to one people? How do you segment different people in different databases? How do you use different KPIs?
Now this is crazy talking Web3. You want to actually test? You want to actually A/B test? You want to actually get market data? Oh my gosh, heresy.
You have to, because that's the thing, right? It's just the technology. It has nothing to do with the different human beings, right? Human beings are the same as far as how they're going to purchase. It's not going to be any different. If you try to force something down the throat, it's just not going to happen. So yes, as far as advertising is concerned, nothing's going to change, whether it's Web 2 or Web 3.
That's beautiful. So I want to change gears here a little bit. We've been talking on content creation as it seats with blockchain technology integrations and gaming. So let's move the niche that we're talking about. Let's move into music, right? So if we talk about, let's use Spotify for an example, okay? I just saw this in a side satellite event that I was at 2 days ago. There are only 16,000 Spotify artists earning more than $100,000 from their annual listens. There are only 4,000 that are actually at a point of scale solely off of ad revenue that they're doing over 200,000. Okay, 4,000 creatives. There are a lot more creators in the music sphere that are on Spotify that are trying to make their way. I don't know the exact numbers, so don't quote me on this, but I believe somewhere in the mid 3 figures, around the $600 mark, is what you get for 1 million streams. Okay, so we've talked about content creation on blockchain. We've talked about gaming on blockchain and how it solves these problems, right? Epic Games generating $4.7 billion and reallocating that wealth distribution to their communities. Let's talk about how that impacts music and what we could see with on-chain music, NFT projects around an artist, whether that comes with community access to that creative, whatever it is, right? Let's talk about that.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, as far as something that feels most actionable when it comes to NFTs and the arts, I feel like music is probably it. I feel like we talk about fine art. I've had some experiences there. I can't comment very much there, but fine art, not it for NFT. In my opinion, fine art is not it. There's some stuff that works. Fine art doesn't work. That's okay, right? We move on, and talk about games and Web3. That probably works. Music makes a whole lot of sense to me because of the broken licensing model for all these artists. And before it was the streaming platforms, everybody heard the predatory sort of contract situations with. And I'm gonna name and shame here because I've got nothing to lose. I'm not in this industry. But Sony, right? Columbia, they're friggin' crooks. They're terrible. You have these artists that they sign a 20 record deal or 20 records or 20 years, whichever one comes first, and they wind up going broke. You could never run a startup the way that these young artists do, and even with the most predatory VCs, you could never sustain that business model, right? And these artists, they wind up getting screwed by the record labels they have prior to when streaming came along, and now Spotify comes along and says, "Oh, this is so great. Think of the discoverability. Think of all the exposure bucks we're going to pay you." It's bro, my kids can't eat exposure bucks. You got to have some conversions here. And you got to know that the margins make sense for a young artist that's getting discovered and is starting to get that audience built and that loyalty built. And it doesn't quite add up on the side of, the creative. So like when you bring that up, right, the music NFT scene, my thinking is we do need to see more disruption there. We do need more of a household name to be created for streaming and Web3 royalties in the music space. But I think like nowhere is it more needed, and would it be more readily accepted, I think, by audiences in terms of just a very simple transition to moving from, okay, don't use this app, just use that one to listen. The discoverability's there, the catalog's there, all the artists that you like are here, all the new ones you're going to discover are here, and we've demystified all the licensing on our end. All we're doing is adding the royalty side to make sure that these artists don't get screwed and they can make that, that sophomore album that you want from them. I think it's a phenomenal use case.
I don't want to name any names here, but witness protection is a real thing. Yeah. When you talk about predatory contracts and things like it's a real thing. If you watch The Black Godfather, you could read between the lines. There's a lot of inspiration in movies like that and with people like from Quincy Jones, Clarence Avant, people who made the way for marginalized communities to come into the forefront. But let's just face it, one of my greatest mentors, his dad, he took care of the bosses when he was in prison as a young kid. And he said, kid, you think you're taking care of, I'm taking care of you, but you're actually going to take care of me. It's just in culture, people did what they had to do. And those cultures, though, being perpetuated generation after generation without challenging those infrastructures is an issue. And that's why Web3, it does give a third option without putting too much pressure, blame, or guilt on those entities or on those individuals. However, it is a reality that these major, there's got to be accountability in some way. I'm not personally going to take individual responsibility for bringing those things to justice. However, there are many people who feel used and abused. It's 50 years of hip-hop right now, and there's many legacy hip-hop artists that are hungry for this. They're hungry for in some cases, some artists, some creatives who are now entrepreneurs are also looking at owning their own platforms. You hear Isaac Hayes' son is spearheading some things. So there are, whether you call them freedom fighters, reformers, or just straight up entrepreneurs who are looking to solve a problem. If we focus in on just solving the problem, right, there's a great platform called Noom, N-E-W-N, or N-E-W-M, like Noom, N-E-W-M, New Music, out of Nashville. And they got a team all over the world, but they're fractionalizing royalties. MERS did a drop, but we found out MERS drop didn't do as good as somebody who was on a blockchain platform that they had just more community support because MERS fans didn't understand that. So it's building that bridge for the artists to, I think Sammy Arriaga is a great case study. Violetta Zeroni is a great case study. Spotty Wi-Fi is still a great case study. But the best case studies, y'all, are not Web3 artists. It's the Grateful Dead. It's Dave Matthews Band. It's some of these CCM artists that nobody in the world knows who they are, but they have a community that buys their music. So those models from a community standpoint are probably, there's safety in numbers. So if somebody does want to come out and they want to talk about some things, they have a less, music festivals, those scenes are a great place where you will hear almost DeFi. You'll hear DeFi principles, but they just don't understand the technology yet. True decentralized communities are within these music festival communities that are already connecting with their bands. There's already fan funding and fan engagement to the point where groups like OAR and Dave Matthews, I know OAR, they did not like even calling their fans at first. They called them family because they just didn't want to, they didn't just want a one-way street. They really wanted people to feel part of.
It's a tough question. I agree that music is definitely a good use case. But when we're talking about royalties, it's platform. So how are you able to get people off the Spotifys and the Apple Musics of the world unless they adapt? So if they wind up adapting to some sort of blockchain NFT royalties, then I think that there's a fighting chance. If not, then you're going to have to wait for that next Facebook that popped out of nowhere to actually really gain some steam. Now, I think that what's going to happen probably over the next 3, 4, 5 years is there's going to be that fractional ownership off of mints, off of a lot of emerging artists in the beginning. I think Rihanna actually did something for Super Bowl. She's testing stuff out. She's trying to give a little bit of power to her fans to say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a little bit of what we have here, but at the same time, now you can trade it. Okay, so I think that what's going to happen is you'll have a little bit of the bigger artists experimenting, but in order for there to truly be the royalty that people deserve, it's going to come down to a platform that takes off, that actually people want to use, that is going to be, if not the same, then or better than an Apple Music or a Spotify. So it's one of those things where I think that we just have to keep on fighting forward as far as music is concerned. Give the emerging artists as many opportunities as we possibly can. We were just talking offline that one of the things that we're going to be doing, like with our governance of our token, is voting rights for different 5 genres within the game to actually be featured as, if you don't want to listen to the soundtrack and the map from us, you now have in the season the opportunity to listen to 3 or 4 different country artists, 3 or 4 different pop artists, 3 or 4 different rock artists, hip hop, EDM. So that way, what happens? Like, you know what? I've been playing this game. That's awesome. But you know what? Let me listen to what the EDM stuff is, right? And all of a sudden, maybe it's on repeat 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times. You start to really like this song, right? What can happen there? There's where the royalties can start. So maybe it's game publishers like ourselves that actually can give a portion to the actual artist, or at the same time, just be able to say, hey, listen, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be saying this is going to be a compilation NFT. Like, I'm older, so I remember the old compilations from the actual radio stations, right? I used to love those, like 20 different emerging artists, and 1 or 2 of them popped, right? You're like, oh, that's where I remember that before they were successful. And I think that it's got to go back to the roots to be able to say, okay, what worked back in the 90s, right? And bring it back to the technology, but give the platforms or the platforms give the artists the ability to actually do that. And I think emerging artists are going to be the ones that are going to have the power in the NFT industry, with platforms hopefully like ourselves that give these artists the actual platform to actually be showcased in a fashion that probably the consumer would not be expecting. And I think that that's going to be an evolution, and it's going to be an experiment moving forward.
Yeah, see, sorry for the interruption. I think what you're talking about there, being able to add it to your platform, where you're able to stream additional music titles in-game for your players to be able to just participate with zero friction. Whoever figures that out on the other end and says, you know what, we're one API call away for you guys. Don't worry about it. We got you, fam. And they go and license everything from BMI for you. So now your users just say, like, yeah, I don't want to just select from a few. I can select from anybody. Royalties still flow as they're supposed to, and it's still Web3 native and friendly.
So what we would be doing is we would license the music, right? Just like we would license the music with anything that we're doing. That's essentially what we did. We had an artist that actually, if you guys should check out the trailer or cinematic trailer, but the music is badass because it's just an emerging artist that's a cool hip hop rapper that created the song for us. We listened to the song. I said, hey, listen, it would be cool if we had a female vocal singing and you just rap. But he's like, okay, let's try that. And it came out awesome. But what we did is we said, hey, listen, we're going to pay you. We're going to license you. We can use it wherever we want to. But you keep 100% of the royalties. We're not interested in taking money out of your pocket. We want to give you the money and the opportunity as an artist. I was a touring artist 4 years in a rock band out of college. Didn't make a fucking time. So I part of ASCAP and the 11-cent checks that they send. It's awesome, super fun. So to me, it's being able to allow artists to have those platforms, and I really like that idea of tying into some of the bigger publishers. But at the same time, I think it's going to be some of the smaller record labels that are going to actually come on before some of the Warner Brothers and the Atlantics of the world. Because just like with the question that I think he had asked before, is why aren't the bigger publishers going into NFT yet? We are in a little petri dish that they're all watching, right? So let's see if we win either A, with consumer sentiment, or B, it actually makes them more money. And if it's a combination of both or either one wins, then there's going to be a migration in those, especially in like music, in my opinion.
Sure. And what I want to touch on here, so basically, I don't know exactly the prominent rapper. Don't quote me on it. Maybe I want to say Tyga, but I'm not sure. But these predatory agencies that are record labels, they grab up-and-coming artists that are budding, they're blossoming, and they take future earning percentages, 20, 30, 40% of their future earnings, and they use their warm connections to accelerate their growth. But when they grab them, they're already a prominent budding artist, right? This prominent rapper, again, I want to say Tyga, but don't quote me on that. He minted a song, this was about 3 months ago, and he used his Web2 audience on Instagram to sell out 1 million tokens at $1 a token, and he sold out in 4 minutes. Okay, $1 million in revenue. If we're looking at streaming data, that's billions of views. It's billions of views. Okay, it's crazy. The next thing I want to touch on, and we'll wrap up here pretty quick, but book recommendation for the audience: Snow Crash. If you haven't seen it, and following up reading Snow Crash, go ahead and watch the movie Ready Player One if you haven't seen it already. But this falls right in line with blockchain. It falls right in line with virtual reality, where we've got Bolt, and it falls right in line with the content creator ecosystem. Okay, so the Oasis. Have you guys seen Ready Player One?
Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. So my question: the Oasis. Okay, in the world today, 2023, where we're at in market cycles with cryptocurrency, where are we in cycle as far as how far away are we from something that resembles the Oasis, a Ready Player One economy, and what does that look like?
So I'm gonna jump in and say something audacious. It's gonna be a federated system. So what the folks over here at Wagmi Games are doing is amazing and important. Sorry, Wagyu.
No, we're Wagmi.
You're Wagmi.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Wagyu does sound good, though.
I like Wagyu, but again, the vegans, I just don't know if they're going to go for Wagyu.
Well, shout out to Undead Blocks because they're Wagyu.
Yes.
Wagyu Studios, and the panel on yesterday, we were with Kyle, who's with Undead Blocks, and I'm like, we've never met before, but you're Wagyu and we're Wagmi. So, anyways, go.
That's the tail wagging the dog, right? Boom, boom.
There you go.
Okay, so we're here all week. Actually, more minutes.
If you're driving, don't drink it. If you're drinking, don't drive.
And just for the record, I'm a flexitarian. I like Wagyu, but I'm not an Impossible Burger guy. I like, if it's good, it's good, but I like both. Flexitarian, for the record.
I'll eat anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you went with it. Yes.
But back on Snow Crash.
Federation.
Yeah, just to say, I think federated systems are going to be how we get there. It's not going to be a monolith. We might have a couple of standards where things wind up touching on the edges, but it could be that the Wagyu and Wagmi in this federated future, where some of your assets are transferable, where they translate from one ecosystem to another, and that's where Web3 also promises to help us out so much. The Oasis, as such, when you're talking about just game engines, well, we already have a little bit of contention between Unreal, right, Unity, some others that basically nobody uses, but Unreal and Unity. And then you've got some of these other these primitives as far as games being created that don't talk to each other. Well, where do they talk to each other? In NFTs. Really well, actually, because we actually have standards there. So you can cross over and you can do some of these, we'll just call them atomic swaps for assets in game. And that's where the federation begins, where you got Wagyu, Wagmi making kick-ass games and people getting in-game assets and thinking, oh my gosh, is it possible that I can translate this skin over here, over to there, or this armor over here, over to there, or this other power up, or whatever it is that I've earned here that's unique? Where else can I use this asset? And as the rest of the community, or the rest of the builder community, responds to that and says, well, we're not so much like trying to keep up with the Joneses as much as we're trying to, or fight for feature parity as much as we just want to make sure that our communities are taken care of, our gamers are taken care of. We're giving the people what they want, right? You said before, if you build it, they will come. That's only true of the circus and bread, my friend. That's the only time that's actually true. And so while we're building the circus, right, and pardon the crude expression, right, while we're building the circus of video games, we got to give the people what they want. I think what they want is that system where in Web3, they get an in-game asset, playing a kick-ass game over here, and it's not lost the moment they start building up XP and achievements over here. And then they can come back over, bring all the great stuff they found over here back to your ecosystem. And I think that's what it looks like in the future. The potential Oasis in Web3 has to be on the edge, and Web3 helps glue those edges together.
Steven Tyler, I believe, from Aerosmith would, because he said, you living on the edge. That, I think
you sound
that,
just like him.
No, he's my uncle Steven. If you're out there, we just encourage. We're not even going to call it the metaverse, Steven. We'll call it shooting arrows in the sky. Come home. But I think it's a cross generation situation, the older and the younger. That kids sometimes have a problem with their parents. Unless there's a serious problem, they rarely have a problem with their grandparents. Some grandparents are really cool. Like I could just about guarantee Steven Tyler most likely has grandchildren, right? So, hearing those wild stories, I think the connection of honor and respect and some of these like basic principles that help for a healthy community is, like we said it before, we're celebrating 50 years in hip hop, right? So when the OGs in whatever community, when they come on board with something, it's most likely than the younger. But if it's not an OG and it's just an older person or something, just they think they're cooler than them. So I think cross-generation, cross-genre, like that TED Talks meets WeWorks meets South by Southwest perpetually 24/7, 365 options is that's what I see as an Oasis.
It comes down to, and I agree with you as far as the interoperability, but it comes down to us as game designers and studios to actually program it and have those interactions and communities and say, listen, to the consumer, you're right. It's cool that I can take this character and go from one game to the next. As game developers, we have to basically develop that. Like, you can't just randomly take a zombie from Undead Blocks and throw him into Wagmi Defense.
I disagree. Gary's mod disagrees.
Oh, you think you can just throw something into our game?
No, this Gmod. Yeah, Gmod is a totally different thing, but the Gmod of Web3 is going to be like the killer app.
Oh, got it. So I do agree with you. I think that it comes down to us working as founders and builders to give what the consumer thinks that is so easy and interoperable, and create that actual, state of the union, where literally you've got 50 different states that you can go from state to state to state very simply in a car, and it's all good, and you don't have to have a passport to do it. That's going to take some time, and there's going to be, I think, imagine if the game studios actually start doing that, or publishers. So like EA says, okay, we're going to basically say if anybody's on EA, you have to be able to start creating alliances with some of the characters in other games to be able to have that cross interoperability. And it's going to come down to us having to build it for the consumers before something magically happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One more thing that I want to touch on here and grab your guys' opinion. Okay. For that individual, that aspiring creative entrepreneur, startup founder, person that wants to build their own path, carve it out. They haven't touched Web3 yet. They're a little antsy in the pantsy. They want to dip their toe in, right? What would you say to that person that's on the edge? They're about to jump, but they haven't jumped in all the way yet.
So I'll take this. There's a couple of different times in somebody's career where there's an opportunity that you can capitalize on an emerging technology that you won't see for another 15 or 20 years. And it's happening right now. And what wound up happening when I got out of college, as I mentioned, I was a touring musician. Well, the band was called Liquid Vinyl, and I wanted to create all the flyers, right? So one of my nerd buddies from UF was like, dude, I'll build you this badass computer, get you Photoshop and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm like, all right, that's great. And it costs $500. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. And then basically he goes, all right, you need a domain name. I said, what's that? So that one question was, what's that? Not knowing what a domain name, and having me discover in 1997 that this new thing, it wasn't just AOL, right? There's a whole entire web out there that people can actually get information from off of websites. And at that point, I was like, oh, that's not around yet. So let me dip my feet in and delve into it. Fast forward a couple of years after that, I was designing websites for pretty much all of Gainesville, Florida. And then fast forward a couple of years after that, I was like, oh, okay, there's this company called Overture. This was before Google. This was before Facebook, in which you can actually advertise to get people to click on your website. Okay, this is pretty cool, right? So fast forward a few years, started a company, lead gen, blew that up, right? Did a good exit. And then at that point, now, fast forward 20 years, this is it again, right? This emerging technology is the next, what's that? A domain name, right? And for anybody who is kind of on the fence, whether I should do that or not, listen, as long as you can, if you've got kids, feed them. As long as you got rent, pay it. And just know that you might be a little bit hungry and have to sacrifice a little bit, because ain't nobody making very much money unless you're flipping NFTs in this space, right?
Well, even if you are flipping NFTs, unless you've got thousands of NFTs, it still doesn't justify the gas costs and the network transactions, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So knowing that there's some pain involved in an emerging technology, just know that we're not going to see this for another 15 or 20 years. Mm-hmm. And if you look at how emerging technology has happened, it's cyclical over those times. So that would be from experience on how I've led my career up until this point, on what I would say to somebody who's like, should I delve into it, or should I just go to the 9-to-5 bank job and say, fuck it?
Don't miss the wave.
Don't miss the wave.
Really good points. Really good points. I'll touch base. I really believe that to the first newcomer that's listening to this podcast that is on the fence and hasn't really decided where they should begin, you should probably read up on Investopedia. You should probably most definitely understand the Bitcoin white paper and peer-to-peer technology, the fundamentals. And if you want to carve out a brand, don't necessarily rely on your, I'd say, sensibilities. And don't look to the low-hanging fruit. Try to do things differently. Look for genius. And remember that community is key, and also find a way to create memorable experiences together, because the friends we make along the way are ultimately what matter most.
You said don't walk the paved path, find your own path and make it happen with your network and grow.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a good question is, what do you really want? And who do you really want to help? And if you really want something, then get your 30, 40 hours in. If you don't like Gary Vee, listen to my friend Roy Future Man Wooten from Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. He just preaches to a lot of people in this space and says, look, I'm coming to this stage. They're bringing me to this stage as a legend, but I'm coming to this space with the heart of a child. So, and he listens to, Gary Vee says 30 to 40 hours. If you don't like the name Gary Vee, just get over it. Just listen to somebody, and whether Anthony Pompliano or somebody, really connect with somebody you trust. If there's somebody you trust in the space, and just ask them some questions and answer that. What do you really want? And if you're not willing to put 30 to 40 hours of your time in, that's really, I heard somebody say back in the clubhouse rooms, which is now like Twitter Space, if you can't spend 30 to 40 hours over a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 month period, then just don't have an opinion. Then decide when the buy-in's high enough, jump in, but don't do your best to not have contempt prior to investigation.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say, Don't judge a protocol based on its evaluation. I'll never judge a protocol based on its evaluation.
And
That's all.
I'll end it with two more things. Number one, if you're passionate about it and you love it, do it.
Mhm.
And secondly, surround yourself by people who are smarter than you.
100%.
Yep.
100%. We're here at ETH Denver. We're biddling, connecting with people. You've got your clubhouses, you've got your Twitter spaces, but the real connections are made here. This is where you concrete all your connections and get those pieces of the puzzle that you might not have dialed in yet, and meet these great founders, other builders that are building something prolific in the space. I want you guys to drop in. Where can people get connected with you digitally?
Yeah, absolutely. So two places. Twitter's usually the best place, at ianbentley.com. Or not. It's
.com.
It's .com, .net, .org. At Ian Bentley on Twitter is my personal Twitter. And if you want to follow Wagmi, it's at Wagmi Game Co.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You can find me anywhere at Jakeb Livengood, Jakeblivengood, or Dynamics Gamer, also anywhere, even on Lens now. We're officially a Web3 creator, and we got Bolt VR as well. And Bolt, trust me, you gotta keep an eye out for it and watch what's coming. It's beautiful.
Hey, I want to shout out Seth too. Mind Your Business. Check out Seth, Mind Your Business. And a music tech me. It's Seth from Mind Your Business, right?
Seth at Mine Your Business. Precisely.
Mine, M-I-N-E.
Yeah.
Mine Your Business.
Mhm.
Mine.
Incredible content creator from Viral Nation.
Beautiful. And I'm BrandonDavid. You can find me music on Twitter, Music Tech Media. Telegram, Music City Crypto still works. And Instagram, BrandonDavid _Music Tech Connect. BrandonDavid there you go.
There you go.
BrandonDavid.
BrandonDavid is the OG. My name is 150. Everybody knows me in the network on Twitter as at TPS0011. And of course, you can also find me on Twitter via my alternate account, which is the host of this podcast, Bolt EVM at BoltVR on Twitter. And of course, don't forget to visit boltevm.com. And of course, get involved in the community, mint your free world orb, and ship your own stage, peer-to-peer end-to-end encrypted. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for the Boltcast. I appreciate you all for listening.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today.
Appreciate it.
I feel electrified. Electrified.
All right.
That was so fair. That's the podcast I've ever done. And I am now in love with podcasting.
Don't you want one of these? Like, you just like, can I just get a space where I just have one of these all the time, right?
Oh, man. I'm in.
Cool, man. It's nice to meet you, dude.
Very nice to meet you.